My name is Andy, and I film the videos at the Imperfects. I'm the son of English immigrants, and I am grateful to call Australia home. We at the Imperfects acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, and extend our respects to their elders past and present. I am inspired by the strength and endurance of the world's oldest living culture, and we draw on and pay homage to their traditions of story when we share stories on our podcast.
I'll be with you in just a moment, Elton, John, because it's time for this year's grand return of the Academy of Imperfection, where experts in their field share their wisdom on the subject of imperfection. Today, we welcome back fan favourite Ben Crowe.
When you kind of tell your life story, whether it's to yourself or to someone else, or you draw it, the next sense is just kind of making sense of it and realising, well, this is not the truth. This is just my version of events. Our life story is not our life, it's just our story. And I'm the author of it and I'm the narrator of it. So it's kind of a quirky process, right? Trying to be objective. And unfortunately, we're also really hard on ourselves with that reptilian brain with a negative bias. So if we were able to do it from a place of compassion and self-compassion and gentle inquiry and an element of playfulness, our version of events are very different.
So put that jam and cream back in the Frigidaire and join students Hugh, Ryan and Josh for the Academy of Imperfection.
Got some pretty good news for everyone.
Yeah? Not having another kid, are you?
No. Not that I'm aware of. No, I don't think we are. But
Okay.
even,
Which would be great. I'd be very happy for you, by the
sound
way,
like you
for
were.
the record.
Sound like you're thrilled for it.
4 under 4.
The good news is, well, you've seen his name on your platform, so you know it. But I'm just confirming the good news is that we are joined by Ben Crowe today. Now, I watch a lot of US sporting documentaries, and I'm going to use a word that I see in those documentaries all the time. I've never used in my life. You are a phenom, and it is
A phenom is a great word.
He's
Yes.
a phenom, and we are
Wow.
joined by a phenom, and that's exciting.
That's
I
with
think-
a
I think-
PH or a F?
Yeah, it's a yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like, I think definition's like outstandingly talented or outrageously talented, and that's what you are. And we are very happy to have you in here. You changed so many people's lives the last time you're in here with us, so it is wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hugh.
Again.
That lovely introduction. It was a lot quicker this time around than the last introduction you did. I think it went for 3.5 minutes.
And I would have been reading it.
45 minutes. Yeah, exactly right. We had 5 minutes left for the episode. So.
Ben Crowe, phenom. Welcome.
Wow, thank you. I haven't had that on my resume yet, but I'll take it.
Well, it is. I think like the first episode that you did with us was, I mean, we don't really ever talk about on this podcast, people listening to it, but the first episode that you did with us, Ben, I think is safe to say, I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but it's probably the episode that put us on the map, if that is a weird thing to say, but I think it's the episode that most people, at least for like the year or two after you were on, like the year after you were on, it was the episode that people were introduced to the podcast through, because I think so many people were sharing it. And I reckon a lot of people, at least that I know, who maybe would never have listened to the podcast, was sent your episode, and the things you were saying were so universally helpful and relatable that so many people could just grab things from it, and it was impacting their lives. So it is like, talk about like big returns. This is a big return. We're so grateful you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And then you guys had to go and get Lael Stone and put her on the Imperfects as well.
We got stoned with Lael.
And we all like, we're done looking good now. And you get someone like her. I mean, she was ridiculously impressive, right?
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah, and fair to say, the reason why she's the most shared podcast in Australia through the Imperfects is, and probably similar to the other guests you've had along the journey as well. It's not us; it's just where the world is at, right? And your ability to
struck a chord. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, congratulations on the journey that you're on. And the theme around imperfects, right? And we spoke about why it's such an important theme right now in terms of where the world is at. But also, I think we've just lost the art of dreaming and dreaming big, and mainly because of fear. And it's one aspect that humans have over any other species on the planet is this thing above our head called imagination. we're the only species that has it, to the best of our knowledge, which means we're the only species that has the capacity to dream and put these goals and dreams out in the universe without any guarantees or promises or expectations that they will actually, take shape. But so it's not that we actually, it's not what we dream in so much that we actually do dream. We have the courage to dream and put them out there and don't confuse them with expectations. And then life just becomes this wonderful adventure, this kind of experiment, this kind of work in progress where you're allowed to screw it up, you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to get it wrong, you're allowed to be imperfect, and that's totally okay. And and Ash talks about it publicly as well. So I just
Ash Barty.
Congratulations to you guys for continuing the dream and the possibility of what you have, these messages that you can connect and help with the world. And so many, and talking to Bridget, your producer, offline about the incredible messages that you're receiving from not only Australia but around the world as well. I'm sure it's the privilege of a lifetime, I guess, for you guys to do what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, it's the privilege of a lifetime to talk to the people that we get to talk to. I feel like it is incredible. Like yourself included, there's so many amazing people, and people are more often than not, and this is not false humility. It's like people more often than not are tuning in for the guests and for good reason. And it's like we're just very lucky that we've had very generous guests come and share their stories. So that is a massive part of it.
Yeah. I also feel like you found your rhythm because you're all different, you're all unique, and therefore you found your authenticity.
Yeah, so I think so too.
Definitely.
Yeah, when you get a boy band together that kind of has that ability to kind of still be yourself, but kind of, get in flow like that. And obviously I've listened to a lot of your episodes and it feels like that's just got stronger over the journey as well.
I'm Joey Fatone. In the boy band analogy, I think. Few people will maybe get that reference, but worth it.
I'll Google it offline.
Yeah. Can I? This is I listen to everything you put out into the world, like everything, and
you're the one.
And I love it so much. But I am interested to hear about your dreams. This is because you say this incredible stuff, and every time I listen to it, like, I want to know, like, he's a friend, but whenever we catch up, we always end up just talking about my stuff. But like, have you putting dreams out into the universe at the moment? Are you?
What, you want me to be vulnerable?
Yeah, well.
That wasn't in the script.
Give it a go, Ben.
No.
Come on, just try one.
No, it's so overrated. I've got dreams. Absolutely. Professional, personal. Professional dreams is that Mojo app becomes the most important app ever created in terms of the impact and hopefully some of the exercises that can get into the education system, especially around controllables and uncontrollables and, self-worth through being a human being, not a human doing, and all these things, especially around resilience, and around acceptance and around gratitude and around controllables versus uncontrollables and, comparing and judging themselves rather than accepting themselves. There's just so many themes and principles that just are not taught today.
God, yeah.
And then we talk about all these, the incredible rise in mental health and anxiety. I'm going, well, okay, well, maybe there's a different way to approach it. And then we get to the weekend, everything's organised sport, organised. So we've lost the ability just to play and being more playful, which taps into that, right brain imagination sort of thing. So dreams that my kids and Sally, have the courage to be true to themselves and feel that they're worthy of love and belonging, but go after their goals and dreams as well. So it's very much around, I guess my dreams are still helping others go after theirs. I don't have any, I'd like to get my handicap down, Ryan, at some stage. That would be a dream. If I can play bogey golf, that would be a big dream of mine. Yeah.
So what is your handicap now?
26.
26. That's lower than mine.
Yeah,
I don't think I have one. I've never played.
I reckon you don't have one then.
No one's told me what mine is, so I assume I don't have one.
Totally. Yeah. I probably need to spend more time on my own dreams. So that's a constant work in progress.
I mean, you're busy being pulled in every which direction. Everyone wants to work with you. Everyone wants to speak with you, and not just like locally, like internationally. You've got people wanting you all over the place. I think this is not, I know this is not what you signed up for, but I'm just so curious about how you, and it's something I know we've talked about, I think we both struggle with, but are you protecting your energy? Or are you still feeling like these people need this, I've got it? I guess that's probably why the app came around as well, as far as I can reach as many people as I want, but I'm interested to know how you balance that when you know how important it is to have your own time versus that these people need me. So I'm just going to go and be a phenom for them.
It's a really good question. You think of the energy source around physical, mental, social, and spiritual. I was doing a pretty good job in physical and mental. Socially, I probably needed to just connect more with friends and have a belly laugh. And spiritually, just probably get more present. And, you know, like the laughing Buddha, get more present and get more playful. And finding ways to, you know, my favourite quote is, there's not a shred of evidence in favour of the idea that life is serious. But sometimes I can get too caught up in my clients' work or you know, the work that we do and forget. That's why I love the concept of humour as a form of imperfection with your podcast, is just to remember to have a laugh, because, you know, you can't make this shit up, especially the last 3 years. So, so from an energy source, when I can find ways just to genuinely have a belly laugh with friends, find more opportunities to be more playful and more present, I think that will, you know, definitely increase my energy levels. From a physical point of view, last year was crazy, you know, and travelled all over the world for pretty much most of the year. And took on some pretty big projects that I never dreamed we'd, you know, be working with the clients that we've been working with, you know. So, I took on a lot, and like you, the ability to say no has definitely been a work in progress for me, and talking to you actually, Hugh, about prioritising your time and prioritising, you know, family and the Resilience Project and this podcast, you know, I think I also need to get that clarity of finding my top 4 or 5 priorities and staying ruthless to that. I probably still spread out way too much. That's affecting my energy levels.
So, sorry, just to go back on that, you said there were like 5 different types of energy. Do you ever say it? No, that's fun and interesting. I haven't.
Yeah, 4. Yeah. So your physical, your mental, your social, and your spiritual.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you think about your world in those four lenses, you know, physical could just be to live, but it's also relevant to having enough income, you know, for shelter and food and so forth. You know, mental is just your stimulation, education and growing, that thirst for knowledge and pushing yourself. Social is relationships and friendships and so forth. And spiritual is just that connection with your why, your purpose, your values, you know, staying incredibly present. And that, the spiritual connection that we have with ourselves. So I look at energy through those four lenses, if you like.
Not sexual?
Sexual could be physical. I'm guessing sexual is physical, right?
Energy. Yeah, not spiritual.
Well, it depends what you're actually doing or your definition of sexual energy. How would you define sexual energy?
Damn.
Return, sir.
Damn it. I just got crowed. Got crowbarred.
Because I can't help but picture those
Thanks,
4
you.
different types.
Talk about helping each other out.
Okay.
Thanks, mate. Great, keep going. This is good.
I can't help but think
come
about
back to
those
If we have
4.
time.
I can't help but think about those 4 categories as like the old computer game where you choose a character for yourself and they've got different strengths and weaknesses, and like, and I'm trying to picture like which one do you want the most and to get through life. And so that's just a visual that came up into my mind. But
yeah, totally. There's other ways to look at energy, by the way. You look at it in terms of these human needs that we have. Like we have the need for love and connection. We have the need for growth and learning, and we have the need for contribution. Right? But they also look at those, you know, those 3 lenses, right? The need for contribution and fulfillment is very much the spiritual lens. The need for growth is very much the mental lens, and the need for love and connection is very much the social lens as well. So whether you're looking from a point of view of Eastern philosophy or you're looking from a point of view of these needs, you know, Stephen Covey, who in my opinion one of the world's greatest life coaches, you know, he talked about to live, to love, to learn, and to leave a legacy. Which, if you think about it, also links into those 4 lenses of those 4 worlds again as well. So I think no matter which way you look at it, it's probably the best way to segment to see whether your energies are low. And as I said, for me, it was less physical and mental, but it was very much around, you know, social and spiritual where I was kind of lacking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, so you've mentioned a couple of words that I really want to sort of drill down on today. Play definitely being one of them. But before we do that, would you do one more vulnerability? Could you do one more? And you don't have to answer any of these questions.
Is this because I'm having a cup of tea because you tight asses don't have any coffee in this place? It's like, where's Mojo Espresso here? We only drink, I'm Ted Lasso, we only drink coffee. Like
okay. All right. No, we don't have any. We do have coffee, but it's not worth it.
You save it.
It takes too long to make.
I think it would be interesting for people to know about your why. Like you do so much and you do so many incredible things, and you as a person mean so much to so many people. But what set you on this path to? I mean, I don't even know how to describe it succinctly, but what set you in this path to doing what it is that you do?
Hugh, I'm going to do an Esther Perel here and say there's two questions there. What's my why and what set me on the course?
Yeah.
The why, I kind of articulated in 1998. I just laid off 150 staff. I was working for Nike at our Asia Pacific headquarters, and I was too young to go through that kind of, I guess, small T trauma per se. And there was only 6 or 7 directors left, and I was the only Aussie. We're heading back to Portland, Oregon, and I couldn't decide whether to stay at Nike or not. And so I went and spent 2 days at the Peak Cafe, which is the highest part of Hong Kong. If anyone who's been to Hong Kong, it's all right. I wasn't going to jump off. I was just trying to work out what my why is. And with the stimulus that I guess we use a lot with Mojo today and Post-it notes and so forth. And after 2 days of just scribbles, I wrote down, I just want to help athletes do things better and be better for it. So, I think we did that last time with you, Josh. What do I do? I help. Who do I help? I help athletes. What do they need? I think they just want to do things better, and whatever they show for it, they'll be better for it. So that was my purpose, to help athletes do things better and be better for it. I had no idea what or how or why that was going to take shape. Obviously, over the time, that morphed into working with coaches and working with CEOs and working with teenagers and so forth. So I just redefined my definition of an athlete was anyone who likes to compete, have fun and play, which means that my canvas now is the whole universe. So that was kind of my why, and it still is to this day. I have no idea how that's going to, show up in my, relationship with my kids or my wife or my clients or my colleagues or you guys. But wherever I go, I have this curiosity to how can I help athletes do things better and be better for it, which includes this, this episode today. What set me on the course? It's a really good question. I lost my dad when I was in year 11, and just trying to make sense of that kind of chapter as the youngest of 6, I think that probably started the journey of this kind of curiosity of, just trying to make sense of that. Crucible moment for me, and how do I overcome that adversity with love and connection, in particular of my brothers and sisters and my mum and friends. Probably got me on this kind of curious lens to make sense of the world and try and develop a sense of perspective and purpose. And that curiosity, while, you can only join the dots looking back on your life, if I think about, that crucible moment, it was definitely the start.
As a 16, 17-year-old, though, were you thinking, what does this mean for me? How do I navigate this? Or did you have time to go through and mourn that? Or was it like, were you very quick to go, how do I make sense of this?
Yeah, definitely not at the time. I was, 16 years old in year 11, right? So it was more a case of just, how do you get through it from a grief point of view to start with? And then how do you support others as well? And I remember...
You were thinking that as the youngest. How do I support everyone else?
Yeah, because everyone else is working their asses off and picking up my dad's cleaning company, and I couldn't do much at all compared to what my brothers and sisters were doing. So, again, I was just finding little ways just to help and support, and it wasn't a lot. And I remember my first day back at school, which is probably about 10 days after Dad died. I just didn't want to go to school. It was starting to go off the rails a little bit, and I wasn't that good at studies. And I remember Mum driving me to school, and she said the way that I can help or get through the moment was just treating Dad as a bit of an angel who's up there, who you can still talk to. You can't see him, but you kind of know he's still there. And it was almost kind of this, I don't think she used these exact words, but kind of dedicate my life to Dad and kind of be in his honour, if you like, that I'm still here and so forth. Obviously, I have his surname. And that actually, I'll never forget that little comment that she made about treating him like an angel and still talking to him. So you talk about spiritual connection, right? I don't think a day goes by that I probably don't think about him. And then over the journey, losing other friends along the way, I've understood the power of dedication, to what I'm doing to these individuals that are no longer here. And I feel kind of grateful and thankful that I guess I'm still here and have the opportunity to help other people as well. And I don't think we understand how powerful because if you dedicate whether it's this podcast, whether it's this year, whether it's your life, to someone else or something that has helped you get to where you are today. It might be a sibling, it might be a brother, a sister, a neighbour, a coach, an ex-coach. It doesn't matter who it is, right? But when you dedicate your performance to that individual, it takes that performance to a whole nother lens, right? A whole nother universe. And you lose sense of ego, and you lose sense of fear, you lose sense of identity because it's not about you. You're dedicating it to someone else. And I think I've really enjoyed how powerful that can actually be. And it's so purpose and dreams are very correlated, if you like, in terms of, putting these goals and dreams out there, but also dedicating your life to others as well. It just develops this beautiful perspective in so many ways.
Has it instructed like your values as well and like the way that you go about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the way that I develop values for anyone else is the same I develop for myself, right? And that's why your greatest growth comes from your darkest times. Not only because it unlocks humility and curiosity. So, okay, I'm on my knees, life sucks, how do I get through this? And the curiosity to turn adversity into possibility. But to your question, it's also where your values are found. When you're the lowest of lows and the darkest of dark, that's when typically you have to draw down on some energy source deep within you to overcome that particular moment. Yeah, and that could be courage, could be love, it could be perseverance, it could be resilience, it could be optimism, it could be positivity. Right? It doesn't matter. So the questions you ask is, what's one of the worst things that's happened to you? And for me, it was losing my dad. The second question is, well, righto, what got you through it? Right? And when you tap into that second question, they go, well, I drew down on family, my brothers and sisters, so much to get me through that chapter, and my mum, right? So my core value is love. My second value is courage, and kind of have the courage to be authentic, the courage to be yourself. And the third value is play. Right? Just remember not to take life so seriously.
So they're your three values.
Yeah. And then there's behaviours that sit off those as well.
Can I just ask about? There's lots of things I want to say. I'm just trying to organise them in my brain. It's like someone in my brain is like moving files around. But with love, do you mind talking specifically about love and like how love plays a part in your life, I guess, and how it affects your decisions, or how it I don't know, how you maybe use it to motivate you, or how it acts as a value, like practically speaking, in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other derivatives of how you would define love. I used to say there's only two, everyone in the world is balancing two things, courage with consideration. Yeah, the courage to put yourself out in the universe with these God-given gifts, out of your comfort zone to try and realize your potential in life, and consider it, at the end of the day, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about the impact you can have on someone else's life, to care about them, to serve them, to love them, to be interested, not interesting. And when you're getting into that mindset, it's not about you anymore. Right? It's such a beautiful way that unlocks this incredible compassion for others, but it also starts with loving yourself, right, and being kinder to yourself, because the number one form of love is self-love, and acceptance is self-acceptance, and compassion is self-compassion. And so that just reminds me, from a perspective point of view, that it's not about me, and you shift that perspective from I to we, and you think about, how I can be the best part of someone else's day. But that's how I use it. Someone else might define love differently. What's really important when you unlock your values, and it's the fourth exercise in chapter 2 of our course, right? Unlocking your core values. What's really important is once you identify that word, that you define it, because it's different for Ryan as it is for Josh, as it is for Hugh, as it is for me. So define what love means to you. Right? And if I put you all on the spot now and just ask, okay, what does love mean to you? You'd probably all give me a slightly different word or a certain articulation. Well, let's do this. This is Academy of Imperfection, right? And then the once you identify it, and look, this is just off the top of your head, right? So there's no right or wrong. Then you start to develop 2 or 3 behaviours that can hold yourself accountable to that particular value, because values are quite nebulous, they're quite vague, like esoteric, like a greasy pig. Every time you pick it up, it gets out of your arm. So defining it and then turning it into behaviours enables you to be able to hold yourself accountable to love and actually measure whether you're living in accordance with your values around love. So how would you, Josh, how would you define love for you?
This is so it's such a coincidence. Because we caught up last week, and maybe this is because all this stuff's been moving around, but we didn't talk about this at all. I don't think we talked about love.
I don't think we did, yeah.
But I don't know if that mindset has informed it. But I ended up writing stuff about this morning, just coincidentally, and it's very quick for me to come up with the word selfless. Is beautiful for me. That I think sums it up.
Yep. Yeah. And then the next step, the homework would be, righto, if I was truly being selfless, which, by the way, your values you're in 100% control of. So Josh is 100% in control of being selfless. There's so many things you can't control in life, but that you can.
Yeah.
So then to say, if I'm truly being selfless, what's 2 or 3 things I could do this week to truly be selfless and live a life in accordance with that value. And you'd come up with 2 or 3 ideas, right? Well, as soon as you articulate them, there's your roadmap, right?
Yeah.
That's your authenticity. If you show up being selfless, that's who I am, right? And that excites the shit out of you. Just, other ways I can bring selfless, and just feeds on itself. You make a decision to be selfless, then you'll make another one, and then make another one, and then another one, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you bring your values to life.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's what, for me, that's one of the core elements of being authentic actually is. Yeah. What about for you?
I think interested to me, like just being with someone and just being so interested in them. And I am interested, I always am, but I feel like I worry it doesn't come across that way enough.
Yeah.
So when you say love, I'm thinking I'm just so interested in that person in their life.
Yeah. I love that. It's one of Ash's and Hamish McLaughlin, who I know you've had on this podcast as well. Be interested, not interesting is a mantra that both of them use that reminds them of that place as well.
Yeah.
It's just a simple reminder.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, it's the reason I asked about love is because I actually have been thinking about it very specifically, like even just the last week. A couple of days ago, I kind of have what is kind of, it's an epiphany for me, and a lot of people, including you guys, will listen and go like, "Yeah, no shit," but for me, it's quite a big thing. I think, and this sort of plays into a little bit to what we first talked about, Ben, when you so generously spent time with me and spoke to me and did a podcast episode about it. Completely changed my life. Because so sort of like an addendum to that, I guess, is, never thought I'd say addendum on the podcast. An addendum to that is this sort of realization that my entire life, my sort of unconscious, not necessarily goal, but I think the thing that I've been the state of being that I've been trying to get to in order to feel safe, which is like our number one psychological need, I think.
Yeah.
Is to be loved. And whether that be from family or friends or people watching my work or listening to the show, it's like I've never really thought it that specifically, but I think because I was loved very much as a kid in my family, and I just took being loved for granted throughout my whole, I was very lucky. I was loved by family, parents. It was that was never in question. And so as I've gotten older, I am now, it feels not necessarily unsafe, but I'm extremely uncomfortable if I'm worried that I'm not being loved.
Yep.
And the thing that I've sort of realized is that, like, exactly what you were just saying before about being able to control the uncontrollable. Mm-hmm. I can't control who loves me, and I can't control the amount of love that I receive. So instead of focusing on being loved, I've finally realized that I need to focus on loving other people and giving love to other people. And it's the thing that being loved will not make me happy because it's not a special thing for me. It's the thing that makes me feel safe, but it's not the thing that makes me come alive.
Yep.
But loving someone and actively loving someone, Jam or my family or you guys, doing things to show people that I love them.
Yeah,
that is actually the thing that is going to make me really, really happy and is sustainable, and the thing that I can control. Really,
yeah. Really interesting, and I might challenge it at some stage on this.
Please don't, because I've kind of landed on it.
and if I'll get into your definition of sex as well later on, and whether that's a physical
if we have time.
I know you're going to edit that out, Ryan. You've got all the power in this relationship, right? You've heard me say, find yourself, lose yourself, and find someone else to love as a formula. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Find yourself and find that self-worth, unconditional love of myself. Because then you can lose yourself. You can lose ego and lose it as all about me, and you can find someone else to love. But if you don't find yourself, you'll often be looking for it as a substitute for that constant feeling that I don't feel unconditionally worthy. Mm-hmm. It's conditional upon having to do something or achieve something. So if you think of it in the lens of the need for attachment and the need for authenticity, right? These two needs that we absolutely have. But what happens is if we don't have that feeling of that we're worthy of attachment, that we're worthy of love, we're worthy of connection and belonging, it'll be to the substitute of our authenticity. We'll always, be wanting to find ways to, to get your love, to get your validation for you guys to recognize me, to accept me, to love me, right? Which means I'm not living a life true to myself. And I think that's what's happening today on steroids is without that feeling or that belief system that we are worthy of unconditional love, it's to the detriment of living a life true to ourselves. And I think about that, the beautiful book by Bronnie Ware, the hospice nurse who interviewed, was it 500 people before they died, and the 5 deathbed regrets of the dying. The number one deathbed regret is I wish I'd lived a life true to myself rather than living up to the expectations of others, trying to kind of seek their validation, to seek their attachment, to seek their love. And so along the journey, we have to find ways to believe that we're worthy of it, right? And with that believing they're enough, then we can have the courage to be authentic, the courage to be ourselves. So for me, the value of love is very much that need for attachment, and courage, in my opinion, is very much that the need for authenticity, to cut the umbilical cord and follow our own goals and dreams and be true to ourselves and create that separation between the two. I think that's the journey that we're all on. So as long as there's, in our value set, there is a derivative of love, at one, or however we define it, to be interested at one extreme, but also at the other extreme, a derivative of courage or perseverance or truth, however we define that as well. And getting that balance right, I think we're all on that same hero's journey.
I mean, I feel like you've worked with so many people, famous and non-famous, but you would have seen so much transformation in people who are doing whatever they do. In your experience, from what you've observed, I guess, what happens when people figure that out and truly live as their authentic self?
Miracles happen. Dreams happen. Yeah. Permission to be imperfect but unconditionally worthy means they go after these goals and dreams. They don't make them expectations because they don't have to live up to other people's expectations or this feeling that I need to live up to my parents or my school or my society or my coach or whatever. They can just follow their own path. And that's the opportunity for everyone. But I also believe, that's the number one deathbed regret all over the world, is that we're not being authentic. And I think one of the reasons is because this constant need for attachment and self, be worthy of love and belonging and connection, and not feeling that, or it's conditional upon the conditions being right where you do feel that. The opportunities, if you've got that balance right, then you can kind of, as I said, find yourself, find that love, lose it, and then find someone else to love and chase down your dreams. Yeah.
And then what happens when they don't get there? So what happens? Obviously, they're on their deathbed and they regret it. But what? I mean, I'm sure you've also seen. I mean, I can't imagine it would happen if you've worked with them, but I'm sure there's been times where people have tried and they haven't quite got there. And maybe you don't say that to them. Of course, you're not going to mention anyone. But when you see people who don't quite get there and they're living their life for someone else, what happens then? What have you? Is there any observations or things that you've kind of learnt from that?
So the journey is very much working out, when I'm working with someone, is very much to work out who they are and, more importantly, who they're not, and make sense of their life story from their inner fan, not their inner critic.
Yes.
So this is a really interesting one. I would love to talk more about this.
Yeah.
Because this is a big problem for so many people. I don't want to cut you off then, but if we could really go into looking at your life, whether you're a fan or a critic, I think it's really fascinating. I think it will resonate with everyone.
100%. So the first part of the journey is just making sense of your life story. And that's what I mean by these things that we're just not taught ever. There's no such thing as human being school where you can learn to be a good human being first and a human doing second. Yeah. And for some people, it's just drawing their life story like a map with stick figures and so forth. For others, it's just being interviewed, which is what I've done with all three of you, actually. I just interviewed you and took notes along the way and kind of documented it. And then when you kind of tell your life story, whether it's to yourself or to someone else, or you draw it, the next sense is just kind of making sense of it and realizing, this is not the truth. This is just my version of events. Our life story is not our life. It's just our story. And I'm the author of it and I'm the narrator of it. So it's kind of a quirky process, right? Trying to be objective. And unfortunately, we're also really hard on ourselves with that reptilian brain with a negative bias. So if we were able to do it from a place of compassion and self-compassion and gentle inquiry and an element of playfulness, our version of events are very different. Like, we cut ourselves some slack on so many levels, But we also still need to identify those times when we didn't feel attached, when we didn't feel that we were worthy of belonging and so forth. And whether you call it shame or you call it a not enoughness, right, then I'm not worthy of unconditional love. It's conditional upon being, I don't know, a good athlete or a good student, or I'm just going to be the pleaser and placate my parents or, my coach or my teachers or whatever. And that just continues through our life, right? Always in different costumes, right? It's effectively imposter syndrome, constantly this story showing up at different chapters in different relationships or in different situations when, again, you tell yourself that same story that I'm not worthy of this relationship or this promotion and so forth, until you can identify the source of it. So, the simple exercise, and I did it with Josh.
Well, I was going to say,
last week.
Ben and Josh, you guys caught up last week.
Yeah.
And did this come up, if you don't mind me asking, Josh, did this come up for you? Because I often think that your inner critic is like 6'10" and is absolutely ripped, and your inner fan is like this feeble Monty Burns style character.
Wow.
Physically.
You put a lot of thought into his inner critic.
It's good to actually have a bit of fun with that and we get people to actually name their good wolf and their bad wolf.
It's like your inner critic is like...
Is it Rainier Wolfcastle? Is that his name?
Well, I was thinking of The Rock. I was thinking
The Rock.
that's something.
What's the character in The Simpsons? Rainier Wolf.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget the name.
Burns. Yeah.
And then,
Anyway.
okay, well, then your inner fan is probably that like pimply teenager who always says, I don't know if I'm not authorised to say that.
Yeah.
So the question I asked Josh last week, I said, right, tell me your backstory. And Josh said, where do you want me to start? And I said, wherever you want to. All right. And obviously we started from very young and went through school. And Josh has told me a whole lot of stories. Right. So this is effectively Josh's life story. Yeah. And through that, we spoke about shame and connection and disconnection and perfectionism and, scarcity mentality, not feeling good enough or loved enough. And I think I asked you the question, righto, finish this sentence for me, and don't worry if it takes you a while to do it, but, what's your version of not enoughness, or, not something enough or not enough something? And do you remember what the conversation?
Yeah, I remember struggling to find words that summed it up better than just not good enough was basically the crux of it. And I think maybe I'm going too far ahead here, but I remember I think you might have asked me, when did that begin? Like, when did you first think like that, or when did that idea first pop into your head?
Yeah. When did you might have started comparing yourself against family members or judging, putting yourself below others? And
and I remembered going back to about grade 5 or 6, and Hugh was. I think it's one of the things of having such a successful sibling. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but when you've got an older sibling who is having so much success, and at that point in life, I think it was grade 6 when Hugh was sort of school captain in the VIS for cricket, just whose star was really on the rise. And for a boy who I would guess I was 11 or 12, sort of hitting some pretty confusing time in your life, hitting puberty in high school, I, for some reason, started to, I saw that I think I already knew I wasn't the athlete Hugh was naturally. And I probably wasn't as performative and funny and charming as Hugh was naturally. And so from there, I always felt like I wasn't enough, because I was like, well, that's what success is.
Yep.
Success is all the accolades that he's getting.
Yep.
And I know the person he is, and I love the person he is, but I don't have those qualities in me.
Yep.
So therefore, I am not good enough. And I'm sort of and I might be able to convince people for a second that I've got a couple of those things, but I'm faking it, sort of thing.
Yep. And then when you kept going, do you remember some of the others that because once you got in flow and you started to tap into your memory bank, do you remember these situations and so forth? You actually gave me 6 or 7.
And the way a lot of it panned out is, so I wasn't good enough, and a specific thing, and I'm embarrassed to admit this because I feel like I didn't get over it, and my friends give me shit about this, but I don't think I got over it till a couple of years ago, is that I didn't become school captain like Hugh. And for a long time, and I think I got close. There was sort of a group of us that it was out of, and I didn't get the job or the gig. And that was proof to me that you're not good enough, as it was a confirmation of that.
Even the way the phone call came through, it was kind of half
so I knew at the time, because of I remember when you got school captain, they would call, the principal calls your house the night before speech night, which is the night where it's announced, and this principal calls and says, well done, you got the job. and it was the night before speech night, and
Press
we got a
release,
phone call.
Press release will go out at 9 a.m.
Principal, we got a call. Mum said, Phil DeYoung, who's the principal at the time, is on the line, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm enough."
Yeah.
The phone, I get on the phone. I think it was a portable phone, so I went into my room because I wanted to be private. And I remember him speaking. Either I was so on edge, which is probably more to the case, but also I feel like the phone, because it was a wireless phone, like cut out for a minute, and all I heard was, "G'day, Josh. I just wanted to call you school captain," and it like cut out on this middle bit, and I remember having this moment of, I've got it, I've done it. And then I said, "I'm sorry, the phone cut out. Can you say that again?" He said, "I'm just calling to tell you you're not school captain." Yeah. And it was like up to that point, I think that was the main thing I wanted in life. Yeah. At that point. Well, there are some probably deeper things that was trying to cover up for, but that was the main goal.
Yep.
And I failed, but I had a moment where I thought I'd succeeded. So it was like a big lift, and then just getting dropped like a sack of bricks.
And I was watching Josh when he was telling me that story last week.
I still get emotional.
Yeah, and eyes dilating. The stories were incredible. But through that process, he was able to identify, the different costumes that it shows up. And he started with not good enough, that moved to not talented enough, or not funny enough, or not liked enough, or not cool enough, or not popular enough. And you start to identify, all these times my inner critic was coming in, my bad wolf versus my good wolf, and where I was comparing myself against whether it's my siblings or friends at school or so forth, and found a very good reason to come up second rate in those kind of situations. So once you can identify, for me, I told myself a story that I wasn't loved enough, because my dad left me. In his defense, he had a heart attack and died. He didn't have a lot of say in the matter. But as I said, this is not rational thought. It's just these stories we tell ourselves.
That's proof how irrational it is.
Oh, my dad was incredible in terms of the unconditional love that he gave me. But of course, I tell myself a story. I'm the youngest of 6 and so forth. And then I'm not smart enough because all my family's, really, really going really well at school, and, lawyers and doctors, and I'm flunking year 11 maths, right? So again, then you find I'm not good looking enough, so body image is always an issue. I've got big ears and knobby knees and so forth. So you find reasons to put yourself below others with that reptilian brain. So if you can identify the source, as Josh did so beautifully and articulately, then you can kind of find ways to reframe that not enoughness story. And you can, there's I think 5 exercises we do to be able to reframe your belief system, because that's where your belief system comes, is from your version of events, right? Shit happens in life, good or bad, and we believe a certain thing about ourselves or about our version of life or our place in the world, right? And unfortunately, it's more negative than positive. So, but I'm guessing you guys believed in the tooth fairy once upon a time. Yeah. You might have believed in the Cookie Monster, right? Now, you've let go of those beliefs. Oh, well, sorry. This could get awkward if you haven't, but you've already reframed your belief system in other parts of your life. This is just another way to let go of certain limiting beliefs that aren't serving you well, and finding other belief systems where you did feel like you're worthy of attachment, and that you were worthy of authenticity as well. The one exercise that we did together, which was incredibly powerful for me listening into it, is when you developed your courage mantra. Which is something I was keen to do with all three of you, because it's so simple, right? And you can do it very, very quickly in real times.
I have to, I don't know if you want to talk about the journey of how we got to that, but I have to tell you that it helped me so much on the weekend. Like at the time, I remember you said something like, "I don't think you realize how powerful it is what you just did." And I didn't, because I was like, I think that sounded good. Like, I think that speaks truth to me, but I don't know if that's really going to help me. And I had to MC a wedding on the weekend. I've never done that before. And I was so nervous about it because I think I've had a couple of runs at public speaking, and I know it's such a common fear where it just hasn't gone well. Yeah. And I've really hated it.
Yeah. Once Josh had given me all these not enoughness stories, okay, beautiful, well done, courage, you've lent into this process, and kind of what most people don't is you've done the work to kind of lean in. Now, how do we reframe, accept, identify, acknowledge, and then let go? Yeah. And one of the ways to do that, it's the very next exercise in the course, is to develop a courage mantra. Yeah. And in any situations of our life, any conditions of our life, we tell ourselves one of two stories. Either I'm enough or I'm not enough. Yeah, especially if you're emceeing a wedding, right? Either I've got this or I haven't got this, and it happens in a blink of an eye, right? It might have happened when we walked into this room today and put the headphones on for this podcast. And if you tell yourself that second story that you're not enough or you haven't got this, what happens immediately, and you know this from the work with the Courage to be Disliked, you immediately create a vertical relationship between yourself and the other person or the other people, right, in that situation at a wedding MC. And if you put yourself below this vertical relationship, you either put yourself below others, which is an inferiority complex, where fear lives.
Vertical relationship being like kind of like a military sort of style where there's like someone in charge and it's like a ranking of people, status.
100%, yeah, which you have in hierarchies, right? But you don't need to have that in terms of relationships, especially relationship with yourself, with others, yeah. And if you create a vertical relationship, you either put yourself below others at its inferiority complex, which is fear, or you put yourself above others, which is a superiority complex, which is ego, right? Ego and fear are two sides of the same coin. Now, the antidote to these vertical relationships is horizontal relationships, right? Hard for me to do this with my arm just out of a sling, right? Where everyone's equal, right? So when Josh was MC of the wedding night, he's an equal, yeah? He's not better. Like from billionaires to the baristas, everyone's an equal. When you show up from that place, you've got this, right? You can do this, and you are enough. You're worthy, right? And the way to create a courage mantra to remind yourself in those situations is just to ask yourself two questions, right? The first one is, and I'll get you to answer it just on air if you've got the courage to do this, is how do I show up when I'm afraid or nervous or anxious? Yeah. Do I go to silence or do I go to violence? Do I go to fight, flight, or freeze? Yeah. Do my cheeks go all red? I hope no one asks me a question. Or do I go the other way? I start to overcompensate and, name drop or get, or bully or try and use my power to push someone down, right? And in different conditions, by the way, we show up differently. So instinctively off the top of your head, Hugh, how do you show up when you're anxious or nervous? Do you go to silence or violence?
When it's really happening for me, I had a stutter when I was in primary school, and I could just feel it. I just feel it's awful because I just, like my job's speaking, my job is speaking. And when I really, I'm good at it now, but when I was first getting asked to do radio or TV, it was awful because I'd be sitting there waiting for that, be going, we're on in 2 or on in 1, and I'd be going, you're going to stutter. Like you can't even talk. Like you actually can't talk. You either talk, you can't do the one thing you're meant to do. And so to answer your question, it's like I very much go silent.
Yeah. Okay. What are you?
I'm not sure. I think probably. I mean, the thing I'm thinking is that often when I get really uncomfortable or anxious about something, I'll often start ribbing people, like kind of like, and I not put people down. I'm not bullying, but it's sort of like an unnecessary, like little rib on someone. Yeah. And then I immediately was like, why was I doing that?
That's an element of superiority complex as a protection measure to deal with. I
think I do that, which doesn't feel like I would never do that normally, but I think when I'm anxious, I think I do that. I try and make myself superior.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen you anxious then.
Well, I always feel very safe around you guys. Yeah.
Okay. And Josh, do you remember what you said when I asked you that?
Yeah, it was silence.
Yeah, silence
and freeze and
freeze up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the next question is, when does it happen? Right? What's the context? What's the conditions? What's the backstory going on here? Is it when you walk in a room and you feel like you're being judged? Is it when you feel like people are staring at you? Is it when you feel like you can't do something? Or is it when you feel like you're losing control of a situation? Yeah. What is it for you? I'll start with you this time.
I'm so reluctant to tell this story. But it's so years ago when I went, myself and a few, and it must have been like Hamish and maybe Tim, another one of my friends. We got to visit, maybe it was Andy as well. We got to visit the set of, I think it must have been Utopia. So it was like Working Dog, the TV show Utopia. It was either Utopia or Hollow Man, one of the shows that they made. And I am I look up to those guys and have since I was a teenager, like absolutely love them. And so we were getting this tour around the set while they were shooting, and I felt so privileged and excited to be there because I was like able to see behind the scenes while they were filming, and then as we were leaving, like they were really busy shooting, and I've now met Rob Sitch a bunch of times, and I know him relatively well, but not close friends, but know him relatively well. But I didn't really know him that well at the time. And I was very nervous around them. And for whatever reason, stupidly, they were filming this show, and it must have been like the first season or something. And as I was leaving, we'd done the whole tour, and they were in the middle of shooting, and we were like, all right, well, see you guys. Sorry to interrupt, but you go. And I said, in front of the crew and in front of everyone, I said, "Where's Mike Moore?" As in Mike Moore being the character from Frontline he played. And I was like trying to be funny, but afterwards I was like, what an idiot. Like, why? That's such a horrible thing to say while they're filming this brand new show, and I'm like doing like a ribbing kind of like joke about this character that he's known for from years before, as if to say like that's the only thing, we all want Mike Moore back, but now like I don't even believe that. But for whatever reason I said that, and I just immediately realized that was a terrible thing to say. But instead of acknowledging it, I just walked out as if I was proud of the comment, as if I stood by it.
Yeah, you doubled down.
And I've never spoken to him about it, and really not spoken to many people about it. That's now changed. But I just always have really...
this is the Ben Crowe episode. Like, a lot of people are going to listen to this.
I know. But I've always regretted that, and I've always... he probably does not remember it at all, but yeah.
So many people could relate to, because we either overcompensate or we go under, right? It's one of the two, right? And so, no offense, but you're no different to majority of the world in those situations when you told yourself a story that you didn't fit in, so you had to do something instinctively. What is it for you?
I mean, it's a really clear thing and I've had to deal with it a lot over the last 12, 14 years of doing the work that I do, but when someone doesn't like me or doesn't think I should be doing what I'm doing, or
you tell yourself that story,
or I know there's a few critics, like someone will, people love giving feedback and will send me a message saying I'm coming to your thing on Tuesday night, just so you know, I actually do this and this bit's it. I don't like how you do that. That's not right, or that's not good, and I know they're going to be there
judging. Yeah,
if there's someone who doubts me, I feel beforehand I just go silent. I feel like I can feel my stutter coming back. I can feel the stutter that really crippled me in primary school. Like it really, the amount of times I just didn't speak because I was like, I can't speak here because I'm going to have a stutter. And no one knew. It wasn't like no one at primary school would have known, or maybe even family didn't know that I did, because I would choose not to speak instead of having everyone know that I had a stutter.
Yeah.
And so I can feel it coming back. And so I'm not someone who should be on stage presenting, basically, when I feel there's a room full of people who, of late I've become quite comfortable at doing what I do, and I have to say of late I've enjoyed that situation, because I go, fuck, I can't wait to show you how wrong you are. Totally. It's taken me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And occasionally, like a couple of times when I've done the project, I've just, for some reason, I just freeze up. I did okay the other night, but I'm 1 from 4. My first 3 appearances were, I was sitting there and I was like, I'm going to stutter. I shouldn't even be talking. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. What am I doing? Who am I to be on a platform like this?
Yep.
So,
wow.
yeah.
Well, I just saw your documentary on Amazon Prime on the weekend, quick plug, and to see where you've come from, because that was fucking amazing, Hugh. I watched it with my family, and I said to all of them, it's just so cool that these messages are getting out in the world
Thank you,
now.
mate. Well,
on Amazon of all people.
Well, that's so nice of you to say that. It feels weird having that out there, but Penny watched it last night and I couldn't really watch it. I find it hard to watch, but I did go to bed and I thought to myself, a very quiet moment, like where I've been I haven't really owned it too much, but I was like, I said to myself, from a kid who had a stutter in primary school, I think that's really cool you've done that. And I said to myself, you should be really proud of that, because you had a stutter you couldn't talk to people.
Totally.
And you did that, and you should be, so anyway, that's not about the Amazon thing, but like, that's mine.
Gotcha, that's yours. And Josh, do you remember what yours was?
Well, I'm pretty sure this was the prompt for me to tell you that I'm seeing on the weekend, because I felt like that was going to happen at this occasion, because getting up in front of audiences to speak is all, is that what you've got written down?
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, being judged harshly or inferior, or being found out.
Being found out.
I'm inferior on my own.
Yeah, actually, no, you're right, because I remember saying that we've got this live show coming up and I can't wait to do it. And I'm not that nervous about that. I'm just really excited about doing it. And I think it's because I feel so comfortable doing things with you guys, you two, Hugh and Ryan. And I think there's an underlying fear that if I'm doing it without you, that everyone will go like, he needs Hugh and Ryan to be good. Like he's not good enough on his own.
100%, which is a beautiful segue into the third and final aspect of this exercise, right? So you guys have done all the heavy lifting, right? You've worked out how do you show up when you're nervous and the context when it actually happens, yeah? So now the fun bit, this is where you get to create a courage mantra. What could you say to yourself next time that happens in real time, yeah, that enables you to own your story and go tall, not small, yeah, like you did in those situations? And this is where you create a courage mantra, which could be simple as I'm a warrior, not a worrier, yeah, or I'm imperfect, but I'm worthy, yeah, or I am enough, yeah. Having done this with thousands of people over the heaps of athletes all over the world and thousands of executives, the overriding courage mantra that they have is, I've got this, yeah, or I can do this, yeah, and it just reminds you of your authenticity, so, and creates that kind of horizontal relationship. So maybe I'll start with you, Josh. You know, what were some of the courage mantras that you brainstormed that sounds like you're starting to use in real time when these situations occur, when you tell yourself a story that you're not enough or you haven't got this?
Yeah.
What are you starting to use now?
Well, the one I used on Saturday and that I've thought about a lot since, and I had to use it again today because we did a little radio thing, is at my worst, I'm good enough.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because
Brilliant.
it all works differently for personally for different people. And I'm sure mantras have to be personal, but I'm not very good at big statements of courage. So it just felt achievable enough to me, and it felt warranting enough that I think at my worst, it's all going to be okay, and I'm good enough. Yeah,
and
as a person.
And you had a couple of others that you
brainstormed.
brainstormed.
Yeah, I did. I also had just a general. It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
like either way,
beautiful.
It's going to be okay. And this links into. I sort of consider it as an addendum to the first one that as my worst, I'm good enough.
That's two addendums in one.
Yeah,
well, three if you count the time that I repeated it.
there's a fourth. Ben said it.
Yeah,
guys have gone to a whole nother level here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That.
Phenom's a little bit disappointed at the moment. Like, surely I was going to be the weirdest word used today. How have I been outdone?
We're not finished yet.
Yeah, true.
It's very much linked to it, but that all people, and especially in a thing like that, when you're doing something like that, emceeing in front of all your friends, all people want is for you to be you. And that they don't want you to be anyone else. I think that's all that I've learned from this show as well, is that when you're you, there's something forever. I don't know about everyone else, but when you meet someone who is themselves or does something that is truly them, and you just feel it, and it's so, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad, or like good is in like skilled or something. It's just, that's all you can ask of someone, and it's so lovely and refreshing to be around someone who is just being themselves.
Love that.
And so it was a reminder sort of built into that first one that at my worst, I'm good enough, because all I have to be is myself, and that will be enough.
Yeah. You start to redefine success from that point of view. You eliminate so much noise, so much interference when we're craving recognition and thinking it's about us.
Absolutely.
Hugh, did you, off the top of your head, and don't worry if you haven't created one.
I'm going to have a go at it now, but I actually want to spend some time working on this over the next couple of weeks and writing stuff down. But it's something around the fact that my friends really love me.
Yep.
Like because when I'm with my friends, I am very much myself. So the last round of media that I did for the Amazon thing, I did all the big ones in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And it's by far the best I've gone in media stuff. And I love doing it. And I was 100% myself. And I didn't have a courage mantra, but I was thinking to myself, and this is like, I've been meaning to tell this to you both, but I was thinking to myself, just be how you are around Ryan and Josh.
Yeah.
Like be, because that is, I do feel when I'm with Ryan and Josh, that is, and Bridge as well, and everyone from the podcast, that is, I am absolutely myself. Like, and it's just the purest. I mean, obviously with my family as well, that goes without saying.
Yep.
Absolutely goes without saying. My gosh, I'm even more so with my family, but like if I steps outside of the house, I think we all put on a little bit of armor or a mask, or we prepare ourselves for the outside world. But I feel like when I'm with Ryan and when I'm with Josh, I just feel very loved, and I feel very happy where I am, and I felt like I was that in those situations. So it'll be something around like Ryan and Josh.
Yeah, as a reminder. Yeah, it might be just a visualization of their faces and so forth. So you might start having weird dreams at night as well. Ryan, do you have one better than that?
I'm blushing. Wow. I don't have one, but I keep thinking they're just people.
Yeah.
great.
I think more and more I've stopped being scared of what other people will think, because more and more, but specifically from doing this podcast and hearing everyone's stories that comes on the podcast, and also the people who message us, the more I truly not only know anecdotally, but I've now sort of seen with my own eyes that no one has got it sorted.
Yep.
And it's one thing, before we did the podcast, it's one thing to sort of say that, and people might have said that, don't worry, nobody's perfect. We're all imperfect. Sure. But now that I've seen it with my own eyes, and we see it all the time, whether it's the people who come on the podcast or the people who write in, I'm less scared of people, because I can sort of think, I wonder what you're going through.
Yeah.
Because I know you're going through something.
Yeah.
Because everyone is. And so I think I get less scared about what people might think of me. And I think in doing that, I feel like I can act more as myself, because I'm enough, because I know that they're no better than me.
Yep, totally. And that's a horizontal relationship. It's the best way to get rid of imposter syndrome, right? To realize we are all totally winging it.
Yeah.
Like you said. And once you
Yeah.
do that, you stop comparing and judging yourself
Yeah.
against that, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways you can reframe these not enoughness stories. That's just one way.
Okay, sorry guys to interrupt this Ben's chat, but we've cut him in half.
Wow.
Not,
God.
Very calmly said.
Yeah, it's a very good reason why we've stopped with him, though, because he's been cut in half.
sorry, we've cut his episode in half.
Yes,
We
no.
just kept drilling him with questions, and as you probably know about Ben, he's very good at talking. So we're so happy it went for a long time, but we didn't want to cut too much out of it. So it is 2 episodes.
Mhm.
The next episode coming to you soon. 2 topics he really covers: confidence, which is a really big one, and it's such a fascinating chat. And the second thing that I really, really loved was how you can kind of tap into your childhood memories or adolescent memories, whatever it is, and go back to them and almost relive them in order to redefine your story, or really, as he would say, own your story in a much more positive light.
Yeah, I love that. I really enjoyed that.
So just to clarify, we have not cut him in half. He's still
Yep. He's alive and well.
he's alive and well, and his part 2 of the episode is coming to you shortly.
Yep.
The Imperfects is not a licensed mental health service and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. The advice given in this episode is general in nature, but if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is hosted and produced by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, Ryan Shelton, and Josh Van Cuylenberg. Our executive producer is Bridget Northeast. This episode is filmed by Andy Poole and edited by George Martin.